Hi everyone, and welcome back to this Hillsborough County distance performances. This is going to be our week 3 for distance performances in Hillsborough County. I'm going to start with the girls this week since we did the boys last week. Wasn't a ton of movement in the girls rankings this week. Alyssa Hendricks is still holding down the top spot in both the 3200 meter and the 1600 meter from her opening week performance at the George Jenkins Invite. Alyssa 10:40 in the 2 mile, and then Jacqueline from Steinbrenner at 11:06 from the previous week, and Mary Ellen from Plant also from the week before at the Steinbrenner Invite. The only two that were really sort of movements this week in the 3200 meter was the sixth grader from Cambridge, Ellie, who went 11:23 at our home invitational, and then Emma from Newsom at 11:28 at our home invitational, and then Gigi, our own from Wharton, at 12:12 in our home invitational. For the most part, these stayed pretty solid from the week before. There was a little bit more movement in the 1600 meter, mostly from our invitational in the second half of the top 1600 meter, but for the most part, these things stayed the same. Alyssa, as I mentioned, 5:04 from the opening week. Mary Ellen from Plant, from opening week at 5:09. Jacqueline from Steinbrenner last week performing at 5:13, and Emma from Newsom is the only one in the top 5 in the 1600 meter who moved into it with her 5:15 performance at our home Wharton Invitational. 800 also didn't have a ton of movement here. Kylie from Newsom, this is from the first week of the season at 2:15. Emma from Newsom, I believe this one was from last week at 2:19. Our freshman from Wharton, Serenity, did jump into the top 3 with her 2:21.22 performance from the Wharton Invite, and just behind her, Jacqueline from Steinbrenner at 2:21.37 at the Jesuit Quad Meet the week before. So not a ton of movement, as I mentioned here. A couple here from our home invitational, more so in the mile than anything else. In the 4x8, Plant still holds down the top spot at 9:57.41, just edging out Newsom at 9:57.46 at the Steinbrenner Invitational the week before. Bell Creek, this meet, the Richard Allen Invite, was this week at 10:10. Wharton at 10:12 at our home invitational, and then everything else was as reported last week in the 4x8. So let's take a look at the boys. In the boys, Ethan Geiger is still the big winner. He was the leader in the 3200 meter and the 1600 meter, but he actually also moved into the top spot in the half mile. I'll get to that in a second. Ethan's 9:06. If it's not number 1 in the nation, it's way up there. Last time I checked, it was leading the nation. Just a very impressive time here. This was actually the week before. To do this with a week to go in February was just a fantastic performance at 9:06 at Steinbrenner's Invitational. Our home invitational at Wharton did show a lot of great performances in the boys 3200 meters, you can see. And actually, if you look at our Florida rankings right now, of the top 15 performances, 5 of them came from this one race. So it was a fantastic race. I actually did a video breakdown of it if you want to see. It's in the description down below. It was just a fantastic race. Reed in this race sat right behind Jake Turner from Armwood, and in about the last 500 meters, he really just put on a great show at 9:15.62. Marcarius Wright from Newsom, the junior. This was from the week before. It might even be, yeah, the week before at 9:20. As I mentioned, Jake Turner was leading a lot of our home invitational, and then just got beaten by Reed Legg on the last lap and came in at 9:22.9. The sophomore from Plant, Ryan Manny, ran a fantastic race. He and Win from Plant really just kind of sat in the back, and you can see, if you see their video breakdown, they're all just packed together and just move on the last 800. It was really great tactical racing by the Plant crew. Ryan came in at 9:33. Lawson from Jesuit, he ran this at one of his home quad meets a little bit earlier. As I mentioned, Wynn Thomas at 9:40. Our junior from Wharton, Jared Hamill, came in at 9:41.52 at our home invitational. And then John McKenzie also at our home invitational at 9:42. So really great performances in that 2 mile. Keith, or better known as Lee Gibson from Plant, did this the week before at the Steinbrenner Invitational, 9:42. In the 1600 meter, there's only two performances, excuse me, that jumped into it this week. Ethan did this 4:19 the second week, I believe, of the regular. Actually, I think it was the first week of the regular season in Chamberlain Quad Meet at 9:14, and it is still holding up. Lawson from Jesuit, 4:21 the week before at the Steinbrenner Invite. Reed had a really big week. Not only did he get to the second spot in the 2 mile, but jumped into the third spot in the mile, doubling up. At our invitational, we had the half mile, excuse me, the 2 mile at 8:30, and then the 1600 meter went off at about 4:45, 4:50. So they had pretty good time in between. So he went 4:25, very good performance at this point in the season. Keith from Plant went 4:27, as well as Josh King from Steinbrenner and Zach Harrigan from Steinbrenner. This was from a couple weeks ago. Marcarius Wright from Newsom at 4:30. This was from our home invitational. And then everybody else on the list, this was from either the first week of the season here from Dominic, or the previous week, the week before this one, from the Steinbrenner invite. Couple of moving pieces here in the 800. Ethan, in a dual meet that Robinson hosts with Plant every single year, went 1:55.99, a huge PR for him. If I remember correctly, he had either just broken 2 minutes in the half mile, or was just over 2 minutes in the half mile going into it. So great PR for him. He's going to have a fantastic postseason, I'm sure. Dominic from Newsom, this is from the first week of the season. As I said, there was a couple of the kids that did really well in this Robinson versus Plant dual meet. Ryan Manny, the sophomore from Plant, at 1:59. Lawson from Jesuit at our home invitational, 1:59.8. Will from Plant, the senior, did this at that dual meet, 2:03.02. Blake Walker from Steinbrenner, a little bit earlier in the season, 2:03.78. Marion from Robinson, again at this dual meet, you can see that, what are there, 4 performances from that dual meet at 2:03, and then Wynn Thomas at 2:04 from that. From our home invitational, Dalen from Sefner Christian, 2:04.32, and then the freshman from Cambridge, Braxton Legg, at 2:04 from the East Lake early season invitational. Not a lot of movement here in the 4x8. A lot of teams still really haven't run it very much, and still kind of working into it. Plant and Jesuit did this at the tri-meet the first week of the regular season, 2:15 and 2:24 in the 1-2 spots. Robinson last week at, excuse me, I said 2, I meant 8:15 and 8:24. 8:25 from Robinson. We ran this for the first time at our home invitational at 8:47. Middleton at 8:48 the week before. And then everything else are from previous week performances here. So everybody, for the most part, has jumped in and started to run. The one team that really is still sort of holding back is Steinbrenner. You haven't seen a lot of them. They are the defending cross-country state champions in 4A in Florida, and you only see a couple of those kids appearing here in the 1600, a little bit in the 800. You can see their 4x8 team here from a preseason meet. But everybody else has really kind of gotten into it and run a couple of races here. So I do this Hillsborough County rankings every either Monday, Tuesday, Sunday, kind of the for the week before, kind of seeing how everything comes in with the actual results. If you like this video, please think about liking or subscribing. If you have any questions, please ask them in the comments down below. As I mentioned, this boys 3200 meter at our home invitational was a fantastic race, so I would suggest clicking on that video in the description down below. And until next time, this has been Coachy TV.